not going to be much left to finish, but we're doing our Harmony of the Gospels. And although the synoptics all tell pretty much the same story, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, John's a whole different deal. As we talked about before, the last half of John concerns the last week of Jesus' life. So there's a lot left to do, a lot of material we're going to cover. But he's on the final ascent to Jerusalem. And when I say ascent, who's been to Jerusalem? Jerusalem's kind of an elevation, isn't it? Okay? Yeah, it's on a plateau, I think they call it, or something like that. But anyway, when they say you're going up to Jerusalem, you're going up to Jerusalem just about every direction you approach Jerusalem. So that's kind of the way that works. But Jesus has been in Jericho. We know he saw Zacchaeus and blind Bartimaeus. He healed Bartimaeus. He, depending on what you want to believe about the translations, he either saved Zacchaeus or he vindicated Zacchaeus. And we won't go back into that. You go into it for yourself. Look at the verbs. Did he make a future promise to give in the future? Or did he say to Jesus, I'm already doing that? That's a whole other discussion. That's a good one to have, okay? So we talked about that last week. Jesus has now left Jericho. He's on the road to Jerusalem. It's about 17 miles from Jericho to Jerusalem. So now he's talking to his 12. Would you love to have been one of the 12? Traveling for 3.5 years with Jesus. Did he have anything to say? It's just God in the flesh, that's all. Yeah, it would have been amazing, remarkable. We got some of the things, we got only a fraction of what he said recorded. So that's something for all of us to think about. Today's text is in Luke 19, if you want to turn there. And if you don't, I think you've got it memorized. Which ain't a bad thing. We're going to start in verse 11. I'm just going to read the text. My wife gives me a very hard time, even though she's not here in her honor. I'm going to read through the whole text, okay? And then we'll go back and rip it apart, right? We'll start in verse 11, Luke 19. And while they were listening to these things, he went on to tell a parable because he was near Jerusalem, and they supposed that the kingdom of God was going to appear immediately. That's the whole reason for what we're about to read next, okay? What does it say? They're going to Jerusalem, and his disciples, what? They supposed that he was going to bring in the kingdom right now. This time.
They all wanted the king now.
They all wanted the king, this king, and they wanted a Messiah. They had a king. We're going to talk about him too, okay? Verse 12, he said, therefore a certain nobleman went to a distant country to receive a kingdom for himself, and then returned. And he called 10 of his slaves and gave them 10 minas, and said to them, do business with this until I come back. But his citizens hated him, and sent a delegation after him, saying, we do not want this man to reign over us. And it came about that when he returned after receiving the kingdom, he ordered that these slaves, to whom he had given the money, be called to him in order that he might know what business they had done. And the first appeared, saying, Master, your mina has made 10 minas more. And he said to him, well done, good slave, because you've been faithful in a very little thing, be in authority over 10 cities. And the second came, saying, your mina, master, has made 5 minas. And he said to him also, and you are to be over 5 cities. And another came, saying, Master, behold your mina, which I kept put away in a handkerchief. For I was afraid of you, because you are an exacting man. You take up what you did not lay down, and reap what you did not sow. Verse 22, and he said to him, by your own words I will judge you, you worthless slave. Did you know that I am an exacting man, taking up what I did not lay down, and reaping what I did not sow? Then why did you not put the money in the bank? And having come, I would have collected it with interest. And he said to the bystanders, take the mina away from him, and give it to the one who has 10 minas. And they said to him, Master, he has 10 minas already. I tell you that everyone who has shall more be given. To everyone who has, more shall be given. But from one who does not have, even what he does have shall be taken away. But these enemies of mine, who did not want me to reign over them, bring them here and slay them in my presence. Okay, everybody got it? they got a pretty good impression after 3.5 years of walking with him. They should. They should. Do you know that he's Messiah? Man, that's a pretty sad response for a Sunday school class. Yes, we know he was Messiah, don't we? He was the promised king. Did the disciples always act as if he was Messiah?
No.
Do you always act as if he's Messiah? No, we don't. That's what this lesson is about. This parable encompasses everyone. Everyone in the world, and it speaks to accountability. Now, Jesus is going to correct for these 12. We're going to Jerusalem, and now Jesus is going to declare himself Messiah. He's going to kick out these nasty Romans. Everything is going to be great, just like it was under King David. We're going to rule and rule and rule, and guess who's going to be on the right and left hand for 6 places either side? The 12 of us. Okay? That's kind of the way it is. Jesus is going to dispel that notion right now with this story. Let's see what he tells us. He tells us the story, starting in verse 12. He said, therefore, a certain nobleman, the word there is anthropos eugenes in the Greek. Anthropos for man, that's where we get anthropology, right? Study of people. Eugenes is a Greek combination word, genes, from birth. It's where we get genetics. Eu means high. So this was a high-born man. Well-born. He's a nobleman, okay? That's what literally the Greek says. A certain nobleman went to a distant country to receive a kingdom for himself and then return. And he called 10 of his slaves and gave them 10 minas and said to them, do business with this until I come back. Now he's got 10 of these slaves. We don't know how many slaves he has, but he calls 10 of them and he gives them a mina apiece. Each one gets a mina, which is about 3 months' wages. Not an unsubstantial amount of money, but it's not a fortune, okay? But to give a slave this much money, and what does he tell them to do with it? He says, do business. The Greek word is pragmatusate. Greek scholars in here? Good, I said that perfectly, okay? Pragmatusate. We get the word pragmatic from that. He's saying, be pragmatic with this money. In other words, do something for me. Is it a gift? Did he tell them to go out and buy new tires for the chariot? Did he tell them to go have a great dinner at a local restaurant? No, he said, do business. They got it. They understand what they are to do. Whose business?
His business.
His business. I'm letting you have this. I'm entrusting this to you. Why would he do this?
Give them a chance to prove themselves.
Give them a chance to prove themselves. Absolutely. What does it say that he's going to do? This nobleman is going where? To another country to receive what?
Kingdom.
A kingdom. And I'll get into what that means here in just a second, okay? Let's continue with this just a little bit. Verse 14, but his citizens hated him and sent a delegation after him saying, we do not want this man to reign over us. Okay? All right, here's the scenario. Jesus is telling this story right outside of Jericho, somewhere between Jericho and Jerusalem. This is a story from history. They got this because the ruler in that area, or who had been, Herod the Great. Herod the Great. In 40 BC, Herod the Great, who named him the Great?
Herod.
He did, that's exactly right. Pretty high opinion of himself, okay? He's Herod the Great, he thinks. And here's the deal, who ruled this area of the world? Big time ruler. Rome, that's right, it's all part of the Roman Empire. Who's the head dog in Rome?
Emperor.
The emperor, who happened to be who at this time? Trick question. Now, 40 BC, there were 3 rulers. It was a triumvirate called the second triumvirate. Y'all knew that. Let's talk about the first triumvirate. I don't have any idea about the first triumvirate, all right? But we'll talk about the second one. The one who was in charge of the Israel, Judea area, this part of the world where Israel is, was a guy named Mark Antony. We've heard of Mark Antony, okay? He was one said, no, you're not coming through. So there's always been a hostility, a cultural hostility there. And yet, this guy from Edom was chosen to be king over Israel and the surrounding area. To become a king, you got the big king, but the Romans were smart enough to know that they don't know all the local customs of all the countries that they've conquered. It would be best to have someone who's familiar with the people and to the people and who knows what's going on there to be the local ruler, okay? So, but to do that, you had to go to visit the rulers in Rome and get approval and have that granted to you. And this actually happened. That happened for Herod the Great. But Herod the Great died in about 4 BC, and his 3 sons, he wanted them, he divided the kingdom up among them. All 3 of them had to go to Rome. The one that was in charge of the local area where they were right now in Israel was a guy named Archelaus. And Archelaus was not, what does the text say about what happened to the guy when he went away to receive his kingdom in the story? What happened after that? A delegation followed him to protest him being named king over them. They despised him. They didn't want him. Exactly the same thing had happened just a few years earlier with this guy named Archelaus. When he went to go receive the kingship from Rome, a group of Jewish citizens followed in a different boat to protest to the Caesar, to Mark Antony, and say, we don't want this guy. And Mark Antony, being the politician, didn't name him king per se to please the Jewish folks that protested, but he said, you're going to be the ruler. You'll rule like a king, but you don't have the title. And how would you feel if you were this guy Archelaus, who was going to be the ruler? You coming back with a good attitude? No, you're not. Well, it so happened that the first Passover after Archelaus ascended to the throne or the rulership, well, the first Passover, he killed 3,000 Jews to show his displeasure and to build terror of his rule into the people. You better pay. If somebody's going to kill 3,000 people, we don't know who they were, we don't know if they've done anything wrong at all, it's probably just random. Just to kill somebody, for what point? To show you don't mess with Archelaus. So that's kind of where they were. This had happened probably, let's see, 4 BC, probably about 30 years, 35 years before. So it was current history. You don't forget 3,000 of your people being slain, right? But he had built a palace, Archelaus had built a palace there in Jericho. So this was all well known, especially to these disciples, okay? So this guy is going, and Jesus is trying to make a story. Remember, what is our point? What's the preconception of the 12 about why they're going to Jerusalem? To establish his kingdom. Jesus is going to make himself the king. And Jesus is trying to dissuade them of that or give them a reality check of what's really going to happen here, okay? So let's continue with this story. But I'll start in verse 14. But his citizens hated him and sent a delegation after him, saying, we don't want this man to reign over us. Exactly what had happened previously with Archelaus. And it came about when he returned, and that's what you do. You're getting the kingdom of where you live. That was the deal. But now you have the official blessing of the power center in Rome. So you were official. You had their backup. So he's coming back. And when he returned after receiving the kingdom, he ordered that these slaves to whom he had given the money be called to him in order that he may know what business that they had done. Okay, here's your deal. How would you describe going from Israel to Rome? How do you get there? What airline? Oh no, you take a boat, don't you, or you swim. It's a long swim, so really ship's the only way. And there were lots of trade. That's the only way to get things back and forth across the Mediterranean. Well-traveled route, but in terms of safety, how would you describe it?
Treacherous.
If you took a ship out into the Mediterranean, you might not come back. What do you think these guys are thinking? If he did come back, it's going to be a while. So, if you were given one of the minas, it's not your mina, it's whose? It's the master's mina, and what has he told you to do? Do business. Be pragmatic. Do what I would do. Do something that will please me with my money. Okay? Anybody seeing any pictures here? Good. It's cloudy, but it'll get there for you, okay? Verse 16. And the first appeared, saying, Master, your mina has made 10 minas more. Pretty good deal? Has he been industrious? Has he invested it wisely? Look at the humility. What does he say? Your mina. It's not mine. Your mina. It's as though the mina had magically done something on its own. It has multiplied and made 10 minas. And we know better than that. The slave just had to do something with that, didn't he? He did something to make it turn into 10 more minas, but he didn't take credit for it. He said, look what your mina has done, as if it had done it on its own. He's not taking credit. Why? It's not his money. It was a gift. And who do the 11 minas that this guy now possesses, who does that belong to? The master. It's still the master's money. He's saying, your mina, the one you gave me, the one you allowed me to use, and that's key here for us to understand this parable. The one you allowed me to use has grown. He doesn't take any credit for it. He doesn't say, man, I was shrewd. Let's see what the master says to it, okay? The page keeps turning, y'all, I'm sorry. Verse 17, he said to him, well done, good slave, because you've been faithful in a very little thing, be an authority over 10 hot dog stands. 10 cities? What? Now here's the thing about it. In order to make a promise or make a gift like 10 cities, what do you have to believe about the one who's giving the cities? That he has the authority to do it. Does he? Yes, he does. The one in Rome, in the case of Archelaus, gave him the authority to do whatever he wanted to there. And Jesus is making an analogy of himself, obviously, as the nobleman. And the question for us is, does he have authority to give whatever he wants to give? Somebody say, yeah, thank you, got some nodding heads. Yeah, he does. Question 2. A mina, about 3 months' wages, not a bad deal. He gives him back 10 more minas, okay? So he's got a couple of years' wages there, right? Several years' wages that he's returned back. Nice piece of change. Does the master need that money, you think? Probably not. But for a return for that, he gives him what? 10 cities. 10 cities. Is that a generous master or what? Way, way, way beyond anything that was commensurate with the gain that he had made. Why would he do that? He trusted him. He was faithful. What did the servant show? He was loyal. Did he care about the master's business? Yes, he did. Was he shrewd enough to investigate how to make this grow? Did he want to please the master? Obviously he did. And did he? He got 10 cities, and he was told, well done, good slave. Well done, good slave. Let's see about the other guys. How do they do? Verse 18, the second came saying, your mina, master, has made 5 minas. What's he said? Exactly the same thing as the first slave who had made the 10 minas, except he only made 5. But he said exactly the same words with just a different quantity. Your mina, what you gave me, not mine, your mina, it's still your mina. It's made 5 more, which are still your minas. And you made it happen, taking absolutely no credit for it whatsoever. just allowing that there has been an increase based on, would there have been 5 minas more at all had the master not given the one? There would not. There would have been no increase whatsoever for either of the first 2 servants. So it's all a result of the master's graciousness and kindness. I want you to do this. I want you to do this for me, and I want you to prove yourself in what you will do with the gifts that I give you, okay? That's a great thing. Verse 19, he said to him also, you're going to be over 5 cities. Which cities would you pick? Eliashib, Tyler, Corinth? No. I don't know which cities. Does it matter? What would you get when you say you're over 5 cities? What does that mean? You'd get a piece of everything that came in. Taxation, everything else, right? That's kind of the way it works. So this faithfulness in a little bit gave them amazing bounty. But they proved themselves. The first 2 are good guys. Now let's look at this. See what we got 3 here. Verse 20. Dun, 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 dun. Play the threatening music, okay? And another came. This is fun for me. Greek and Hebrew are the 2 most expressive languages in the world. Just so happens that our Bible was written in those 2 languages. What a concept, huh? Coincidence? I think not. What does it say? Another one came. There are 2 ways to say another in Greek. One is allos, meaning another one of the same kind. If I said, I want an aloe sandwich, I want another sandwich. If I just eaten peanut butter and jelly, you'd know I want another peanut butter and jelly sandwich. The other word for another is heteros, which means different. I want a heteros sandwich. The peanut butter and jelly was good, but I want ham now. Okay? This says heteros. He's a servant of a different character, and that speaks so many levels, okay? He's a different servant. He's not the same in spirit, in attitude, or in responsibility. We're about to see that. Another came saying, Master, behold your manna. He's still saying it's not my manna. You didn't give it to me. It's still yours. Which, did the servant say, did the master say, what'd you do with my manna? He's preempting him. He's preempting him. He says, which I kept put away in a handkerchief. Now this story, the rabbis would say, you don't keep stuff that's valuable. This is 3 months' wages now. If you got your cash for 3 months of work, would you take it home, put it in your handkerchief, carry it around? The rabbis would say, you bury something there. You bury it, at least nobody's going to find it. You're not going to lose it. This guy didn't care. He kept it in a handkerchief, carrying it around with him, obviously. But he kept it in a handkerchief. Didn't invest it, didn't bother to do anything with it. Now, it said he's a slave of another type. How is he different from the first 2?
Well,
They're responsible.
Not very responsible, I don't think. He's not worried about the master's business, is he? He was told to do business, not keep the money safe. He gave it to him back. Let's look at what he says to the master, okay? This is telling. Verse 21. For I was afraid of you because you're an exacting man. The Greek word is austeros, austere. You're an austere man. You take up what you did not lay down and reap what you did not sow. Now I have a problem with this. Well, let's go on. I'll tell you what I have a problem with. The master says, verse 22, he said to him, by your own words I will judge you, worthless slave. What kind of slaves were the other 2? Good slaves. Good slaves. The master said that, okay? Did you know that I'm an exacting man, taking up what I did not lay down and reaping what I did not sow? Now here's the problem I have with this. What is the thief, not the thief, but the slave, the last slave who took the manna and kept it in his pocket in a handkerchief, what is he saying about the master? I knew that you took up where you did not lay down and you reaped where you did not sow. What is he saying about the master? He's what? A cheater. He's a thief. What is his opinion of the master?
not very high.
Not very high. that I'm an exacting man, taking up what I did not lay down and reaping what I did not sow? Is that an admission that yes, I am? It sounds like it, kind of doesn't, okay? Look at the first part of that phrase in verse 22. By your own words I will judge you. Since you, this is Ken's interpretation, the KSV, Ken's Standard Version. I think he's saying, if that's what you think of me, I'm going to judge you by that standard. Since you think I'm an austere man and a thief, let me tell you what I'm going to do. Here's the thing. What do we know about this nobleman? What do you think about this nobleman based on the actions of the first two servants? What would you think their opinion of him was?
He was a good man.
He's a good man?
He was just.
He was just?
Generous.
He's generous? They know he's generous beyond a fault. Now the third slave has heard this. He's heard the first slave gets 10 cities. The second slave gets 5 cities. He knows. What do you think he's thinking at this point? Well, I blew it. If only I had just invested it. And look what the master said. His mina has done nothing but been returned to him. There's been no increase. There's been no profitability. There's been no one affected by what he's been given. It's just in his pocket, and now he stands there and he gives it to the master, essentially saying, I was scared of you. I don't care about you. I don't care about your business. Yes, I'm one of your slaves, but I don't have the same attitude as these first two guys because I'm a heteros. I'm a slave of another kind. I'm different from them. And the master makes a suggestion. Verse 23, why then did you not put the money in the bank? And having come, I would have collected it with interest. The word there for bank is trapezos. It means table. It gives you the image of the money changers, lending at the table, okay? Turning over the tables, that's exactly what it's supposed to give. That's where they did banking, on a table. So he says, why didn't you put it in the bank? At least in the bank, it would have been what? Saved. 2, it would have earned interest. It would have made something. If you were lazy enough just to hang on to this thing, this slave is apathetic. He's uncaring. He's totally disrespectful. He certainly has absolutely no ingenuity, and he's disobedient to what the master's commanded him to do with what the master gave him. Roger that? Everybody agree with that? Okay, yes, sir.
It also say that if you've done next to nothing, there is some reward for
He
it.
said you've done worse than nothing. That's exactly right. And the shame of it is, I think this broke this master's heart. That he would have somebody associated with him of such low character that held him in such low esteem. Because he failed to use what the master, who made the master give them anything? It was just a generosity. Here's the thing, did they know what the outcome of their investments was going to be as far as gifts or rewards from the master? Do you think they had any idea? They know he's coming back. They know he's coming back. Did the master change during his trip? Did something about the master change? Trick question. Yes, it did. He became the king. He came to take over, and he had the power to do whatever he wanted to do. That was a huge change. He was powerful before. He was a man of high birth, but now he was the ruler. He was in charge, so he could do whatever he wanted to do. Did they know that was going to happen? Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. All 3 of them did. Now, we don't know about the other 7 servants, do we? We don't know. They were somewhere in between that spectrum, weren't they? They either got some increase or they got nothing. He may have gotten with the other 7, the one with hit in the handkerchief, but let's hide our remaining in the handkerchief. We don't want to get in trouble. At least we'll be able to give it back to him. Let's see what else it says.
Are you saying that was their motivation,
For what?
what you just said?
Oh, no, I think their motivation was, the first two was to honor what they've been told to do. They're slaves, they know who their master was. Certainly, they had no idea they were gonna get any kind of reward like that. It doesn't indicate that. Why would you do that? Why would a slave think that? This was abundant, amazing grace and generosity from a master who had absolutely no compulsion or he was not forced to do that. He did that out of his heart to show his gratitude for what they had done with what's his. Okay? All right. Page turned again, pardon me. All right, let's see what he says. Verse 24, and he said to the bystanders, maybe the other 7, take the minnow away from him and give it to the one who has 10 minutes. And they said to him, Master, he has 10 minutes already. To which the master said, duh. Did the master not understand? Can he not do math? Yeah, the master got it. Verse 26, I tell you that everyone who has shall more, to everyone who has shall more be given, but from the one who does not have, even what he does have shall be taken away. But these enemies of mine who did not want me to reign over them, bring them here and slay them in my presence. What's this about? Who's he talking about? Okay, it's talking about the Jews on a very local and real and historical level. Who else is it talking about? Anybody, everybody. What are the menace? God's gift to whom?
The world.
To us. Has everybody got a gift in here? Everybody know what their gift is? I have the gift of honking the horn. God has gifted how many people? Everyone. Somebody say everyone. Everyone, we've all got some kind of a gift, and what do we do with that gift? Who's the story about? Who's Jesus talking about? Who's the nobleman?
Yeah.
He is. Where is he now?
Right hand. And
Well, he's on a trip, right?
our day is coming.
Is he given authority? Is he given authority to come and to rule and to reign? Is that ever going to happen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it will when.
After the 7-year tribulation.
We have no idea, do we, when that's going to be. The question is, they didn't know when he was coming back. And there are 3 types of people in the world. 3 types. You've got faithful servants. The first 2 were examples of faithful servants that did what? They took what the master had given them for his benefit, not theirs, for their benefit, and they did what? They reproduced it. They used it. There's another type of servant. That's a false servant who got a gift, and because of his attitude toward the master, did what with it? Nothing. He's going to give it back to the master when he comes.
Depart from me, I never knew you.
False. Then there's the third group, which are his foes. His foes. There's faithful, there's false, and there's foes. And that covers everyone. Jesus is telling these guys, we're going to Jerusalem, but it's not for the reason you think. The Jewish people look at a book of Isaiah, and they see wonderful passages about a conquering Messiah. But they also see incredible passages of a servant that suffers horrifically. And they want which one? They wanted the conqueror. They wanted deliverance. They wanted it right now. These 12 were no different. They read Isaiah. They knew Isaiah. They knew a Messiah was coming, and they knew this was him, and he had to go and take him. And Jesus said, no, not yet. Will he come back? What about the foes? What about the foes? Does everybody believe in it? those later. Let's talk about the false. Anybody in here false? 1/12 of the original followers of Jesus were false. Judas was false. Could they tell? Do you remember at the Last Supper, Jesus said, one of you is going to betray me. What did they do? They all pointed at Judas, right? The others said, no, is it me? Is it me? Judas played a good game. He put up a good front. He walked with the 12, with the other 11, and Jesus for 3.5 years. And nobody knew he was false. Is there a story for us here? Anybody in here false? Has anybody in here been given something, a gift from the master that they're keeping hidden away? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Well, the master's harsh. He's an austere master. Is that your view of God? Then God will say, yeah, I'm harsh. I'm going to take that away from you. And you're not going to be with me because you're false. You did not use those gifts. You did not grow it. And can we grow it? Are you growing it is the question. What's your gift? What's your use for the kingdom? And is God going to say, well done, slave. Here's my reward. Guys, the beauty of it is the reward is beyond anything we could ever gain for him. Is it not?
Amen.
I'm going to make you the ruler over 10 cities. What? What lavish grace. What amazing grace. Faithful, false. Then the foes. What does he say to do to the foes? Bring him here and kill him. Archelaus, when he came back after receiving the rulership of the area, as I told you, the first Passover, after he was ascended to the power, he killed 3,000 Jews. What happened at Pentecost? 3,000 came to know the Lord, based on Peter's preaching. Think there's any symbolism there? I think there probably is. He said, kill them. What's going to happen to the foes of Christ? What? What's going to happen to the foes of Christ? Is that true? You mean a loving God would actually send someone to hell?
He's just.
He's just. He doesn't send them to hell, does he?
No.
People go to hell over Christ's dead body. Harsh? True. He died so people wouldn't have to. And the question is, do you? They're foes. The book of John says he came to his own and they did what?
You have not.
Welcomed him. Made a parade for him. No, they did not. They rejected him. Revelation 11 says, the kingdoms of the earth have become the kingdoms of the Lord and his Christ. Have they? When's he coming back?
Coming back after 7 years after that.
Okay. That's some eschatological reasoning there for you. We don't know. The question is, are we ready? We're pretty sure he's coming back, aren't we?
If you're not, you're going to get
If
ready.
you're not, you better know. He is coming back because he made a promise. What did it say in Acts 1? What did angels say? When the 11 were looking up into space as Jesus rose up, would you love to have been there?
Why you stand here looking
Why are you men looking up into the sky?
same way?
He's coming back the same way he left. Is he?
Yes.
If he doesn't, we are believing the worst lie in the history of mankind. He's coming back. The question is, when he comes back and says to you, the scariest verse in the Bible is to me, it said every man is going to give an account. And women too. Everyone is. Is it going to be the class standing there one time we'll be called in front of the class? No, it's going to be one-on-one in my view. One-on-one. Your wife, your mom, your cousin, nobody's going to be there to say, but Lord, please, he didn't know. He didn't know. you to use. The gifts, the things that I gave you to do my business while you were on earth. Strong stuff. It's a good lesson, isn't it?
Well, somewhere in the New Testament, Jesus says, I'll have to paraphrase,
That's fine.
the work, and this parable refers to doing work,
Okay.
you know. The work is this, to believe in the one who God sent. And so to me, I remember in that verse, and I see this about work, I'm thinking it's more about not just like the stuff you've been given, the talent you've been given, it's about what have you done with the work that I gave you, which is to believe. And so then like if you believe, do you multiply that belief in others? That's how I see
The
it.
question is, do you think that's expected? Is that what he expects? And absolutely, that believes everything. And we get to a very, very, very dangerous situation here because the church has gone from the gospel to social justice. As long as we take care of people, and what scares me to death is that we'll go out and we'll do this, and we'll do that, and we'll mow yards, and we'll paint buildings, and we'll go on mission trips to repair houses, so and so and so and so, and never mention a word about the gospel. That's got to be the motivation. We do nothing wrong with those things. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing good things. But the motivation for doing the good things is the issue. And that's where it starts. Linda, it starts with what's in here. That is indeed the good work. That's the beginning of it. But the good works, James told us that faith without works is what? You got to live it out. We got to live it out. We got to examine our lives and say, Lord, what am I doing? When can you start with that? It's too late, Ken. I'm 70 years old. That gift's gone. I can't use that anymore, can you? Well, you probably can't. It's not your gift. It's God's gift. And we're going to get out. What'd you do with it? What did you do with it? See?
If we're not sharing the gospel, then we're not using our gift and multiplying it for the benefit of the Lord Jesus Christ. We need to be sharing the gospel every moment, every time we get a chance.
Our life should be sharing the gospel, shouldn't it? And that can be seen in work. Don't be like my coworker who says, I wait for people to come and say, there's something different about you. What is it? And he says, when they ask me, then I tell them that it's Jesus in me. Anything wrong with that? Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I asked him how many people that had ever happened to in his life. He said 2. In the 40 years he'd been working at that job, 2 people had asked him, what's the difference in you? Is that bad? That's not bad. But what could he have done? He could have been a tad more aggressive, couldn't he? And guys, if we're concerned about those people out there who don't know Christ, we're going to be really aggressive. First, we have to live the life. Don't say the words without living the life, because that makes you a liar, and nobody wants a hypocrite. And that's the biggest complaint we have against the church. Christ is coming back. He's coming back. We don't know when. We may be long gone. He can come today. We don't know. But he's come back, and we're going to have to tell him, and we're going to have to say, he's going to say, what did you do with the gifts, the talents, the abilities that I gave you? How did you do my business? Strong question. Strong parable. One of the last with the test. Let's go to the Lord. Father, we thank you for this word, Lord. It is convicting. Father, help us not to be a faithful servant, a false servant. Help us to know, Lord God, that we've all been given gifts and talents, and we are to use them for the growth of your kingdom. Father, forgive us when we think we have anything to do with our talents and our gifts. Father, help us to be like the faithful servants who understood that they are yours. The minutes were yours, the gifts are yours. Father, help us to understand that any good thing that happens for kingdom, growth, and expansion is all of you. give us the power and the will and the joy